That really was an episode.
That was
All right, so let's
not
remember
too great, but
I
not.
think
But at least it wasn't the worst.
Okay,
let's
I
try to
think we
remember.
should
We
push
have
it-
we have some new changes I want to quickly announce. We're going to be doing a new segment, positives and negatives. I think that's going to be a great
Yes.
challenge with this episode because a lot of us are kind of negative on it. All right, So what do you guys think?
It was okay.
Oh,
There was
okay.
a turtle pony again.
Yeah.
Turtle pony.
So this episode's all about Applejack and Dash competing, and I think that's always an interesting premise. Goes back to like season 1 or whatever. It's always fun, but I don't know. The execution here is bothering me a little bit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was another Josh
Same,
Hartnett
the
episode.
execution
No, it
was
wasn't.
really not
Was
good.
it?
Yeah, it was. He
And-
helped with it.
And what was also really bad was they should have learned a lesson at the end for their absolutely irresponsible and horrible behavior, but they didn't.
Yeah,
all
that
we got was a
really.
shrug, like, meh, that's how they are.
Well, were they like genuinely interpreting it wrong, or were they just looking after them and being nice to them?
Either
for
way,
whatever
there
reason.
were no repercussions for what they did.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a really bad aspect.
I didn't like Rainbow Dash and Applejack's development.
So,
I
Turtle
guess-
Pain-
There wasn't any.
Turtle Pain had a good
That's
point
right.
earlier about how this compares to Fall Weather Friends or something. Would
Oh,
you want to mention that, or
no,
should
yeah,
I?
Magma actually brought this up, but I was
Oh.
trying to think of an example episode. I hadn't remembered Fall Weather Friends, but he pointed out that it's the same conflict as Fall Weather Friends, but the reason that this one is bad and that one is good is that in Fall Weather Friends, it is just them competing with each other with nothing else as an aspect to it. And the end result is they end up accomplishing the goal of knocking off the leaves. Whereas in this one, they're competing to win an award that is supposed to be benefiting the students, but since they're neglecting teaching the students, they're not really accomplishing their goal.
And I want to
I was
a
add
detriment to
one
both.
thing to add to that is not only that, but it feels more mean spirited. That's the kind of the
It
feeling I
does.
got.
Yeah,
I-
that's.
Yeah.
This is so full of passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I hate, then it's passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Because
I
the
always say,
show-
if someone has a problem with me, just tell me.
The show
Oh, yeah,
always had
sure,
this
Matt
kind
would
of
say that.
genuine charm to it, you know, and I do feel like this episode it kind of is devoid of that. It feels like they're very
Yeah,
irresponsible. And it's not just, well, I guess technically it is played up because it's a cartoon, but not just because of that, but also at the end I have a note here how they not only should they have been able to save themselves out of that predicament in the end because that was much smaller than any of the other problems they've had. So not only is there that contrivance there, but the first thought I have is so much better, and that's that they could have known they could have saved themselves, but let the students do it to teach the lesson. If they just
Yeah.
had that little conversation while wrapped up in that ball, I got a screenshot here somewhere. If they just had that little conversation at that point and let the students save them to teach a point, that would have made so much more sense, and it would just show that they had the students' best interests at heart.
And it would've
But
been
here,
better.
not only is the episode contrived in a way that makes them in that situation when they don't need to be, but also they just end up kind of saving themselves, don't they?
Also, I want to
Or
point
no, I
out,
guess
it doesn't
not.
really look. It doesn't really look like they learned anything. They literally end the episode doing the same thing that they've been doing throughout the entire episode.
Exactly,
fine.
and there's no repercussions.
Well,
What I-
sometimes
what
I
They're
think
not
I think it's
stressed
okay for
enough.
them to kind of rehash some. Like I like them as too competitive. I like them when they're butting against each other. I think it can be fun. But here, the episode's not fun. It's just mean spirited. I think.
Yeah, I was hoping.
Trying to teach a lesson that it's failing to teach.
Oh, I was gonna say this. I was hoping, the entire lesson would be, oh, just because you won a trophy doesn't mean you can continue with your, learningness or talent. That didn't accomplish that at all. They were like, oh, we can reconsider it. Like, are you serious? I thought the lesson was, oh, you can always care about your students than a trophy. I thought.
Was anyone else expecting Fluttershy to sweep in to save the day?
That would have
Yeah.
been great. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been great, but
And they set that up. It would have made sense. I
They
don't-
did. That's why I was expecting it.
Yeah.
I don't like when Applejack and Rainbow Dash fight again. We've seen that happen before, and that hasn't changed. And they're like, "Oh, we made up now. Oh, we're gonna argue again."
See, that's not where I
What?
have a problem, to be honest. Personally, I like them
Oh.
arguing. I think ponies arguing is some of the best the show has to offer because it's funny
I like
and
it.
it.
Fandom always
argue.
argues.
Yeah. I don't know.
But when they do it over and over again and don't learn from
Okay,
it, that's
so-
where I have
yeah.
an issue.
Or when
So
they're this
obviously-
oblivious, really.
Okay,
Oblivious.
Oblivious,
obviously
it's
we all have a
naive.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think.
okay,
So
like
obviously- okay.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
near the end when Applejack and we're about to save ourselves, I was like, well, finally they realized teamwork makes, and then I stopped right there. It's like, okay, the students help out. Like, what the heck? That
I'm
was
glad.
like-
I'm glad they preserved Fluttershy being perfect, though. I think she's my new favorite pony.
My favorite.
Back
So
to the
I-
roots or what?
Apparently,
obviously we all-
you and the entire school, I want to point out.
Yeah.
So obviously we all have a problem with how Rainbow Dash and Applejack acted, but can we talk about how well the students acted in this situation? They were
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
great, I think.
Yeah.
Only because the situation demanded that they be great. Like
Mm.
the turtle pony, what's his name? Something it's like
Sandbar?
Sandy
Is it-
Sandbar?
Is
Just
it?
Sand.
You're
in it.
calling him a turtle pony?
Yeah, because he's got a turtle cutie
I
mark.
gotta look it up now.
Does he really? I
Yeah,
didn't
he
even
does.
notice.
How did you not
The
notice?
stoner.
I didn't
The
pay
sto-
attention.
I've always known him as
Yeah,
the stoner
okay,
because of
the
what he
sto-
sounds like.
The stoner turtle. I will say
I
I'm not
don't know
gonna
any
name
of their
names.
names actually.
Oh,
I'm
hold on.
pretty
You
sure
know
his name is Sandbar, but
That-
like I liked him because he was the idea guy. Like he was like, hey, what if we just did this? And they were like, oh yeah, why don't we do that? And then yeah, whatever her name is, she always took charge, which I feel is very fitting for her.
Yeah.
The Griffin, he was very laid back, but like he was kind of like the new Rainbow Dash, I guess.
Can we have more laid back characters like that one? I really like the students.
they're-
Well,
Well,
that's my
back-
issue with Silver Stars. She's pinky, but a hippogriff.
Yeah, they're just a reincarnation of the main
same
six,
thing
we're
that I
making-
disliked
and then
about
we made
Gabby.
Sheep better.
Gabby, you know, the
Guys?
griffin from before?
Is it
Yeah.
possible they're G5?
Oh my gosh, I would be okay with that.
I mean, that's not what the leaks and all this drama is indicating, but whatever. Anyway, that's a whole different topic.
Okay.
That face though.
But I do want one good point. What was he? Dash Go in the chat remind me of something. He said the students are the viewer's reaction. And one of the funniest jokes was when someone said, "Anybody got a plan?" And Gallus said, "Yeah, leave them hanging." that was like the one joke that actually made me like laugh out loud because like he
Yeah,
kind of
leave 'em
represented the
hanging.
audience's frustration at that point.
But is that a good thing to frustrate your audience?
No,
to such
it's
an effect?
not. I want to
That's
love
the
the main six. I don't want to hate them.
We need Tootsie in here so we can get 20 reasons.
Oh yeah, we do have a Tootsie recorded review. I wonder what he said.
Oh,
Oh
Is
man.
that
If we have
something
time,
you're
we'll
gonna
listen to
show in the stream, or
What?
is that something you're gonna show in the stream?
We'll see if we have time. We'll see how it
Okay.
plays out.
How
So
long is
any
it? Can I
any
see
other
the-
general discussion stuff, or should we jump into our brand new segment, which will be a challenge?
It's gonna be really hard.
Our brand new segment for these weekly reviews to try to keep things balanced. We're taking some feedback into account. Is we're gonna try to specifically focus on positives and negatives and try to weigh them against each other. And I gotta say, I have notes, and most of them are negatives. So this, like I said, will be a challenge.
Yeah, this is gonna be a challenge as well.
Anybody have any positives? Because we've been saying a lot of negatives so far.
The,
I
the
think-
students.
Yeah,
The
the students
students-
are very
Okay,
good.
easily.
They're very relatable.
The
and
Griffin
they have good
character
personalities.
the Griffin character was pretty cool. He had some good lines.
Yeah.
I always had a feeling that we'd come to enjoy Gallus. His
Yeah,
name is
I
Gallus, by the
liked-
way.
I like the
Okay,
sarcasm.
I liked the line where he was like, "Yeah, let's just let them die."
That was funny. But that was only
You know what?
funny
I
because of our
actually-
frustration.
I kind of agreed with him
yeah,
at that
I
point.
agreed with him. I totally agree
It
with
was
him.
like, why don't we let them die? They're being terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let them die. They've outlived their welcome.
Their relevance.
I'm struggling. I guess like I said earlier, the Applejack versus Dash is a fun concept, but again, I can't really
Yeah,
use
like-
that as a positive here because it's not
They,
fun.
they explored a few phrases that like kind of got into the mindsets of the
Whatever
two.
happened
Rainbow
to
Dash wanted to be Rainbow Dash wanted to be fast, and like Applejack was saying things like haste makes waste.
Yeah,
So we kind of got a little bit deeper into the argument, I guess.
a little bit.
Whatever happened to Amy Keaton Rogers with like Fall Weather Friends? That was perfect.
She
But
went to Disney, I
this
think.
one, yeah,
she
no,
did.
the lower end of Disney. But you know what? If she wrote this episode, that would have been a great episode. But
And yeah, well, that's a good point. There is this episode premise can actually work. The students are right. It's just kind of a school episode without actually being locked in the school. The whole idea of a field trip and Dash and Applejack. I love the concept here of Dash and Applejack competing over who's like the best teacher, but they fail to realize that it's at again. Turtle said this earlier. I think Magma said it before him. It's at the expense of the students. They're failing at their one job and they're being very oblivious about it. But anyway, all right, that's another negative. We need some positives.
The
students,
really
again.
We
genuine-
don't know, man.
Yeah, this is a hard one.
I like the colors.
Yeah.
I really like her.
There,
Man.
there were some funny faces. I didn't get them all in screenshots, but
I
there were
like
some
it,
funny
yeah.
memes.
The flickling.
Is that really an episode high though?
All right, so yeah, I guess this
Not very
isn't the
high.
best episode for us to test our positive and negatives because I kind of wanted to weigh them against each other, but I have a feeling this is just a negative episode, and that's fine. We get
Yeah.
them sometimes, but
Yeah, I gotta be realistic.
but I want to point out we're trying, guys, because we get criticized for being too negative, but hopefully this time it deserves it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it deserved it last time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, should we jump into the individual ratings and reviews right away? Is there anything else to say,
Yes.
really?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
All right, let's start us off. We'll go
Right.
down the list as usual, and at the end, if we have time, we'll play Tootsie's video. He reviewed the leaked version of the episode, so.
Yeah, then we're gonna roast his opinion.
Yeah. So just quick reminder, we're trying to limit the individual ratings and reviews to about a minute and a half or so. So go ahead, start us off, Drummer Shy.
Okay, so again, Rainbow Dash and Applejack's character development was just total garbage. I didn't like what AJ and Applejack did, but what I did like was the students. The students were probably one of the best in the episode, and there should have been a lesson in here, like, you know, just because you want to win a trophy does not mean you continue with your talent. They didn't tackle that at all, and you know, the students were very you know, listening of Applejack and Rainbow Dash, but we're kind of like struggling to figure out, oh, hey, they're messing up and all that sort of stuff. What do we do? And I did like, as Magma said, the Griffin character was amazing. I liked it, but it's just, it was an okay episode. I didn't really like it. It's not the worst, but, you know, it's like one of those episodes I'll probably forget in like a year or two. So I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 10.
All right, 4.5
Oh,
from
wow.
Drummer Shy. Who's next? Magma, what'd you think? I have a feeling you have some thoughts.
Yeah, well, this episode was not really good, and we've established that at this point. Drummer said the character development between Applejack and Rainbow Dash wasn't good. To that I say, if only there was any. Because they didn't learn anything. The characters, that is one of my main problems with this episode. The characters that acted the worst were the ones that did not learn anything. And that is a very big problem for me, especially with how the show in itself is supposed to be designed. So they're not learning from their mistakes, they just carry on, and now we can expect this to be just as bad at a later point. Also, yeah, we've already brought this up many times, but the whole thing with putting their competition over the students' safety as well as education was absolutely horrible, and that makes not just Applejack's and Rainbow Dash's behavior incredibly unpleasant and unlikable, but also their lack of responsibility and therefore their motives as well. So those two in this episode were just bad throughout. The only thing that I enjoyed was some of the students, mainly the Griffin. Sorry, I forgot the name again. I'm bad with names.
Gallus.
But,
Gallus.
Okay, Gallus. Yeah, he had some good lines and was overall funny, especially that line, "Oh, we should let them die." I agree with him. They should have. But yeah, not very great. 3.5.
Ooh, all right, 3.5 from
Ouch.
Magma. Mister, also welcome, Mister.
Hello.
Hi.
How are we doing?
What'd you think of the episode?
So I'm probably gonna say it's probably gonna be very similar to what Drummer and Magma said, and probably what Turtle is going to say. But you know,
Don't know what to
just
say.
the characters were unlikable. They were naive. Especially little segments like when they were in the nature walk and they were like, "Oh, I insist that you do this." That just felt generic, and I didn't like it. I didn't like a lot of how specifically Rainbow and Applejack acted in the episode. Especially the fact that with the way it ended, it doesn't really feel like they learned anything from it other than I don't know. They were literally arguing as the episode faded to black. It didn't feel like they, and especially since we've had this issue in the past, like we mentioned earlier with the Fall Weather Friends and all that. I'll be honest. The only pro that I have for the episode has to be the students. I mean, I like the students. I think they all work really well together. Like really, they work off of each other. If you get what I mean.
You like the main six do?
Sure, sure. That's an example. But yeah, if I were to give it a rating, probably same as Magma, 3.5 out of 10.
All right. Wow, this is a low episode.
Wow.
Star Shadow, what did you think?
Well, I did genuinely try to take notes this time. I actually got out a paper, but because this, competing idea is something they'd used before, and it was kind of boring in general, I didn't even get to write much. I wrote, like, at the beginning, when they gave out the first award, it reminded me of the SpongeBob Employee of the Month thing.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that.
And then in the middle, it eventually turned into what I would call a Canadian argument.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Let's see. I did like that they revisited the idea of the competing, but since they didn't really do it that well, in my opinion, that just made it lower for me. They did try to make a lesson learned, but the main characters didn't really learn anything. Instead, it was the students, and I didn't really like that. It would have been nice if everyone could have taken away something from it. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
All right, 5 from Star
A
Shadow.
bit merciful.
Well,
Oh, boy.
all right, Turtle, your turn.
Yay, turtle. So I want to say I'm going to say that I have a negative opinion of the episode overall. However, I'm going to start with the positive thing
Woohoo.
to stay in line with it being positive. The students were really good. They were entertaining, and they played off each other well. They were what's the word? Ingenuitive, where they came up with good ideas on the spot to with the situation. They were smart and clever and fun. However, this was at the expense of having our fleshed out characters, Rainbow Dash and Applejack, just kind of be thrown away. And oh yeah, they're competitive. Bleh. And no one has mentioned this that much, but Fluttershy being the red herring at the beginning, I felt like they were setting her up to be a bit more important. She just never came, but she wasn't even at the resolution of the episode. But I'm gonna say that this was basically the same plot as Fall with Her Friends, except more mean-spirited and more at the expense of what the end result was supposed to be, which was a lesson, as opposed to the removal of the leaves. So this episode didn't really do much for me. I'm gonna have to say 2 out of 10. I'm taking off an extra point because
Is
of
that
the red
the-
herring.
That's
Oh
very low
my
so
God.
far, right?
All
Yeah,
right.
the only thing I've rated lower than that is Batman vs Superman.
So I guess we have some time. I'm gonna play Tootsie's thing really quick. He's not available today, so he recorded his review and he kind of cheated. He saw the leak, but I'm gonna put this in the chat. I'm gonna mute and deafen.
Hi, I'm Tootsie Forever, and this is my episode review. I just gotta say, Fall Weather Friends did it a lot better, because that's actually a good Rainbow Dash and Applejack competing against each other. This episode was the same thing halfway through, and then it was reversed, so they would always agree with each other. Didn't really like that. Another thing, I thought the students were really cool. I like how the students were actually the main focus of this episode. They did a lot more and were more enjoyable to watch rather than Rainbow Dash and Applejack. Another problem I do have is that in the middle of the episode, Twilight knew that Rainbow Dash and Applejack were going to be competitive. The students told her that they were going to be competitive. Applejack and Rainbow Dash even told her that they were being competitive. And Twilight just lets him off the hook just because the students were just being nice. Or really sarcastic as hell. But overall, it's a meh episode. I give it a 4 out of 10.
All right. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but well, I know the chat did, but he gave it a 4 out of 10. All right, so that's actually quite in line with what we
Wow.
thought.
Wow.
Wow, that was
Tootsie,
exactly
Tootsie
what we
gave one of the
thought.
higher ratings from us. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Dude.
because you see, the episode wasn't good, so he realized that in order to annoy everyone else, he has to give it a rating that garbage.
All right, I suppose I'll wrap things up. There's not a whole lot to add. I still want to emphasize, I said this already, but I want to emphasize the ending, where Applejack and Dash are reduced to the point where they can't save themselves in that simple situation. I feel like they could have broken out of there, and Dash could have picked up Applejack and flown her away, and they could have saved themselves there. And the point is that the students had to save them. I understand that, but what they should have done is let Applejack and Rainbow Dash realize that they could save themselves, but let the students do it, just to prove the point and have that little lesson moment while they're tied together in that
Like
emergency
even have a
situation.
moment where Applejack is spinning the lasso and starts to throw it up, and then like Rainbow Dash points, like taps her shoulder, and then points to the students already working on a plan. And she goes, "Oh," and then she throws the lasso down and goes, "Oh, help us!" You know,
Exactly. That
would be
it
perfect.
would have been so easy, and it was the first thing I thought of. So I think when an episode misses something so obvious that could be done to improve it and fix it, again, we came back to the mean-spiritedness and how it compares to Fall with Their Friends and how it's all at the students' expense. There's a lot here that, again, Death Space Pony in the chat said this might be like one of the worst of the series, and I might have to almost agree. It's hard to pin that down for sure yet. But because the show's not so much been about the stories, it's always been a little bit predictable and silly and lighthearted and fun. This is the opposite of that. It doesn't focus on the characters being lighthearted and fun. It focuses on the characters being oblivious and stupid, and these are the main characters. It's okay for like Spike or a secondary character or something to be a little silly to drive the conflict, but when you have two main characters reduced to
who have
such
been
simple
good friends for 8
simpleness.
years.
Yeah, not only been
We've had
friends
this
for so
issue
long,
in the
but
past.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a major step backwards. Like the writer is new and just got a quick little sheet on like, oh, these characters do this and this, and like I don't know. It just doesn't. It's hard to put into words quickly. Like I said, we're trying a timer now. I'm trying to limit
Was this
myself.
a
I could
direct-
rant for hours, so I guess I'll just leave it at I guess a 4.5 out of 10 was my original
okay.
thought. So that's higher than some of you, but still, that's really low for me personally.
I did say 4.5, right?
Oh, did you? Yeah, yeah, you did.
I did 2.
Yeah.
All right, so our average. You want to give us a drum roll? This might be the lowest one ever.
I'll
Drum roll,
never give a
please.
drum roll.
No? Yes? Okay. So the average for the Little Sky Livestream rating for non-compete clause is 3.8. And now technically we usually round up, so I think we're going to call it a 4. So
Too
4
high.
out of 5. Yeah, some people say it's high. Some people might say it's low in the
Alright,
future, but
Might be one
What
of
a
the
Okay,
great
worst.
first episode of the review for me.
This
Get ready
might
for the
be.
hate comments, boys.
Let me just say this before
This
we
is us
end
trying to be
this.
positive.
This might be one of the worst episodes.
All right, well,
in
hold on.
My Little Pony in the series.
we'll discuss this further amongst ourselves and other Discord channels. But for now, that concludes our first impressions review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to tune in next time. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye, Nina.
Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Bye. Have a beautiful time.